Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
G'day and welcome back to How I Doubled. I'm your host, Owen Matheson, and I'm absolutely passionate about helping business owners grow their businesses. I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of great business owners over the years, and one of them is Michael Klausen. He's the Chief Bread Making Officer, CBO of Brasserie Bread, and today we're going to be talking about how changing people's habits can lead to a healthy profit. And don't they look good?
Thank you, Owen.
I could have had lunch and I'm still hungry. So tell us about where it all began. I believe it started at a young age for you, Michael.
Well, I started cooking when I was very young, and my parents was very encouraging for me to actually get into the kitchen, and I basically wrote out a shopping list for my mom, and she would go and buy it. And I had looked through, all kind of books and magazines for ideas I wanted to cook. So I cooked for my parents' friends were coming over for dinner. And in that period, being very young, and then of course when adults see a little kid cooking, they give you a lot of applause, and it might have tasted horrible, but they're still very encouraging in it. So it gave me a lot of kind of like push and passion towards this industry. So it was nearly like a calling very early. And every summer holiday I would be at a restaurant working in my school holidays, and if I could get away on weekends, I would ask to go and work in a restaurant and stuff like that in the kitchen. So when I was finished with my schooling, I did a TAFE degree as a chef in Copenhagen. And the day that I had finished my 4 years working with some of the top chefs in Denmark, I was on a train going to France, because I had given an opportunity to work in Le Trois-Vallées, which is a ski resort in France, and chefing at the same time. So two of my favorite things come together. So I spent 3 seasons in France working and traveled around France, and really got inspired by how food could be way bigger than what it was in Denmark. And I knew I had to leave Denmark. I was kind of it felt small and cramped, and I felt like it was a bigger world. And when you are in food, you very fast can get to know other countries, because you kind of learn about a country through how they cook and how their food has been put together. So I thought I was going to end up in America, actually, because it was just a natural big place to go. And when I worked in France, I met lots of people from Australia, and from all different kind of Australia. They were working there as well in this place called Maribel. And I went, why don't we go to Australia? So I came out to Sydney, and I came across a great restaurant that was called the Bayswater Brasserie, which is in the King's Cross. And it was kind of the kind of modern Australian restaurant at that stage. And we're talking back in '89. And start working with a gentleman called Tony Pappas.
Yes.
And Tony and I became very, very good friends, and actually wanted to bake bread as part of the restaurant. And that's where the whole kind of idea about this company, which ended up be calling Brasserie Bread, came from.
Gotcha. So what was that like, the early days of baking that bread for that market? Did they instantly take to it, or did you have to?
It was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, anyone that thinks that was easy is like so wrong. I mean, it was an enormous amount of hard work.
I could imagine.
And remember, none of us was actually gone through a baking education. So it came off actually studying books, all the travel we had done in our life, and looking into how bread was made. And we really looked into France and California. California is kind of 10 years ahead on artisan baking. And start kind of merging these two cultures together in our way of wanting to make bread, and start making a sourdough starter, and which is kind of like, bringing another baby to life, because you have to feed, you have feeding times, you have to have the right temperature, you have to go through all these steps every day 3 times a day for like a long time until you have a product that you can actually start making beautiful bread with.
So you weren't kidding when bread's your baby.
That is right. And when we start
yeah.
making the product, it was like there's this kind of respect from our peers in the industry. So
Yes.
the other chef was going, wow,
Yes.
can you make it for us? So this little pastry kitchen we had at that time became like, oh, we actually suddenly have to get up in the middle of the night and start making bread for the other restaurants. And the idea was really born about, wow, there's actually a huge demand because nobody makes quality bread like that. So
Complete void in the market.
completely, and we thought, well, if we can make 12, we can make 120. Well, if you can make 120,
Yep.
you should be making 12,000 as well. I mean, there was no reason why growth was a problem, as long as you just stayed true to what we did when we did 12 loaves of bread.
So there's a lot that goes with that. So had you had a a passion for business, or did you want to do anything that way?
I would say
Yep.
yes, passion for business,
Yes.
absolutely. Because when I was, as I said, a young chef in Denmark, I ran my own business when I was 16.
Yeah, right. Oh, well, that's good to know.
Catering
Yeah.
for people's parties, and I would charge them, and I would buy and sell. So you had
Yep.
to kind of work out somehow how to do that. It was a very simple model. And I grew into actually running a fairly strong business in Denmark on the side when I was working with the chefs and stuff like that. So it was very natural to do that. I was not scared of it in any way. And when I worked for the companies here in Sydney, the restaurants, it was like there was 2 ways you really can go as a chef. You can become famous, and in those days, it's before you had the pop star chef syndrome.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but so you and that means you have a restaurant that has a lot of people coming to it,
Yes.
and that's great. And you're up there,
Purely for the quality of the food,
and you're
not
cooking
the
every
PR
night.
campaign.
You
Yeah.
work every night, and
Yeah.
and I didn't
Yeah.
want to be sitting suddenly being 50,
Yes.
having tired legs,
Yeah,
and still
okay.
that's what I had achieved.
Yep.
So I wanted to achieve way bigger than that. And when I could see there was a way of actually not being the restaurant, but being supplying to the restaurant, and having not one, but maybe having 1,000 restaurant you supply to,
Yes.
that was like, that sounded a lot more interesting for me, because the same passion I had adapted to the cooking, which is fantastic because you work with so many different ingredients and you create great food and flavor. The same passion you can put towards bread. There's no different, and it never stops. You
Yes.
never stop learning.
So the demand was outgrowing your ability to supply. So you were forced into a situation where you had to go, how do I
What do we
build a
do?
business? What do I do?
And we actually
So-
went through, which I'm sure a lot of small business owners can hear the same story. You go through a part of it which is really hard. Like you have really no money. You need money to get your products out.
Yes.
And so you end up spending hours instead of hiring people. So I had times where we worked at nighttime in the bakery, and in the daytime I worked in the restaurants.
Yes.
But we did establish a little bakery where we managed to hire a couple of people, and it was in the most horrible, disgusting place. It was clean and tidy, but there was like noisy freezers running around us, and we actually thought we had ghosts in the building and stuff like. It was very strange, and looking back on it, it's kind of a weird thing to think about that we went through that. It was very basic, and the good thing about starting an artisan bakery, you actually need very little equipment because it's all about great skill and hands.
Right.
So we went through that, and we had a
Yes.
guy that ran a company where he was actually doing limousine service, and then in the early morning he would come in his station wagon, and he would then supply the bread out to the
Deliver the
restaurants,
bread.
deliver the bread.
Yeah, right.
And I have
Not
pictures.
everyone gets their bread delivered by limbers.
No, I have it where his car broke down, so he turned up in the limousine, and we were putting boxes of brasserie bread into this limousine that was driving around Sydney at 7 in the morning, going, "There you are."
Love that.
So
That's just a class act, right?
But so we sat down one day,
Yeah.
and we went, and Tony and I, and said, what are we going to do? Because this is too hard.
Yes.
It's absolutely too hard. And we just said, okay, let's go to the bank, let's get some money, let's build a bakery. And we built a bakery, and
How was that, having that conversation with the bank?
That was very easy, actually.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
It's not something you always
You had
hear.
to sign 1 million pieces of paper, and you basically sign away your life.
Yeah, exactly right.
But we knew what we were doing in our heads. We were 100% sure that this was like going to be very successful because we had the demand sitting there.
Yes.
So when we did that, and we built the bakery, and we kind of had to, of course, deliver, because now you had the bank looking in and needed payments, every month, and you had a bigger rent coming in. So we hired more professional people to work with us in the bakery, and it grew kind of quite organic that way. And the market kept growing. We kept having demand. The phone would ring all the time with, can you supply us? So at that part of our business, we worked out, well, we got to actually install some kind of CFO kind of personality, accountant person that can actually keep us on track, not the other way around.
Because it's about the cash flow management,
so
isn't it?
he came in, and we started with having him 1 day a week.
Very smart.
And we worked a business that was basically week to week.
Yeah.
Which is not anywhere the way we work today.
No.
But it was basically, if a customer hadn't paid you in that week, they didn't get any bread. And we made sure we had paid all our bills also in the week. So we were very close to the cash flow.
Yes.
Which meant we knew where we were going. We could see we were having surplus, so we could keep growing. We could invest back into the business, and we kept doing that. So
that's a good point, actually. A lot of private business owners get caught out by allowing things to go on too long.
Absolutely.
Accounts to go 30, 60, 90 days, they're good for it. But then it all gets out of control. So you were literally doing a stop service on that account and within how many days?
Well, 7 days.
7 days, yeah.
And I've been on the other end of it, buying as a chef from smaller producers and suppliers that all did that. But on Monday morning, we had to have the checks hanging on the board for the suppliers coming in with the fruit and veg. They would get a check, or they wouldn't drop it. I mean, we knew that, so of course that was a check for them. But that's how a lot of that industry used to work.
Good discipline for business.
Very good discipline.
Yeah.
It's not that much that way anymore, I believe, for smaller business. I think it's harder to demand that kind of cash flow control.
Yes.
But I think the idea about getting somebody in that actually had a strong eye on the cash flow for us was really important, part of why we managed to not run into a wall where suddenly we couldn't pay the bank because this guy had gone under. Because that was the other thing. There is restaurants and cafe that goes under, and if they owe you a month's worth of sales, you haven't made the sale.
So you were quite exposed in that way.
So you get exposed that way, because you're working with, I guess, an industry that hasn't got always the best kind of record in that. So, but we managed really well, and we knew we had found a building. There was an interesting building in an area, Rosebery.
Is that the building you're in now?
No.
Right.
But at that time, when we were building the bakery, and we were building it together with a coffee business, so we were sharing the rent of the building. And when we did that, there was a fish and chip shops or Chinese restaurant or something. That was the only food you could get. Now in that area, there is probably like 50 cafes. So you can see how things have changed.
So cafe built as
so we had to move out of that area.
Yeah, right.
We couldn't find the square meter we needed, so we moved to Banks Meadow, which is in Botany, and found the most perfect location that we now are in 3,000 square meters and have a lot of space. So it's a beautiful spot. And now what is happening, actually, we can see how people are moving out that way. So there's a community growing as well in that area.
So how did you navigate? So the growth problems kept happening right through.
Absolutely.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.